Welcome to another episode of the Sipping and Tripping podcast, where we connect with amazing people. Today's conversation is about getting relationships wrong until getting it right. I am your host, Desmond Black, and the person that's sipping and tripping with me today is none other than Miss Stephanie McPhail. Did I say your last name correct?
You did, McPhail. Yes, very good. It's a hard one for the first time. Good job.
Gotcha,
Sorry,
gotcha.
my kids are literally coming in as I'm starting. Guys, go away. Sorry. Yes, you. Yes. Sorry,
Yeah, gotta love them. Gotta love them. Okay. So, how are you doing, and how's your week so far?
So far, so good. We had a really great 4th of July. What did you guys do for 4th of July?
This year, be honest with you, nothing. Because my kids, I don't know, I try to take them for 4th of July in like previous years, and it's just like they be over it in like 5 minutes. So it's been a struggle. So yeah, this year I didn't really do anything, and part of that is part is because I was supposed to work, but at my one job, there was so many catering orders that we decided to close just to focus on the catering. So that was part of it. I didn't do any planning because I was supposed to have work, but it is what it is. I'm an active father. I'm in my kids' life every day, so they don't even know what 4th of July means. So it's all good.
Well, my kids, we actually do in the community. There's a parade every year, and so we decorate our bikes, and people decorate or whatever, and then we go walk around the community. And my daughter actually won for her age group for decorating her bike, which was all her because she's super creative and decided she had her vision. And she did a great job. So she won. She the only place. I keep saying first place. She's like, Mom, there were no other places. I'm like, okay, you're right. You just won for your age group.
Right.
But
That's
yeah, it was fun.
that's
It was a good time.
that's good. That's good. So are you married? Or have you ever been married?
I have been married now twice. I'm on my second marriage. This one I am planning on sticking around for. But I was married for the first time to a pretty terrible person. Luckily, I got away, and now I'm very happily married.
Okay, well that's good. That's good. And that's apropos because the conversation is all about narcissism, abusive patterns, and relationships, love, and everything in between. So that's good. Do you have your own podcast?
I do. My podcast is Toxic Love Transformation. It's on all of the places where you can watch podcasts or listen to podcasts, and you can also listen to me also on YouTube as well.
Okay. So all right. So your podcast is on YouTube, or is something else on YouTube?
So YouTube is just I've been doing this for 12 years. I've been coaching for 12 years. So I got all the social medias. If you just look up Stephanie McPhail you'll find me all over the place on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. We're actually doing a 5-day challenge right now in our Facebook
Mm.
community. And then YouTube is it's under Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt. And those are just videos, just good content. And then the podcast is just a standalone by itself podcast. So I have guests come on. I've had some pretty amazing guests as well. We come and talk about it. I like to focus with Toxic Love Transformation, really based on the possibility that no matter what you've experienced, you can change and make a better life for yourself. And so I really try to get people who have seen it all and experienced it and been through some really terrible relationships, but have also come out the other side and are actually doing really amazing stuff.
Love it. Like I love any time that we can get together, and just have a thought provoking conversation. It's therapeutic. It's good. So without further ado, on this platform, I like to conversate, educate, and entertain. But before we get started, tell the viewers a little bit more about your background, where you come from, and things of that nature.
Sure. So I used to be really good at choosing really terrible partners and then trying to make it work. So some of you might be like, "Oh yeah, I know what that's like." I went from one bad relationship to another one. I always just thought I could fix them and make it better. So I always stayed too long and lost myself in the process. My first husband actually strangled me on our wedding night, and I stayed
That's
because,
crazy.
yeah. I stayed because I was embarrassed. I stayed because we had spent a lot of money. I stayed because I really just thought that he did all the things, right? He said, I was just so stressed out from the day and I was so overwhelmed and it'll never happen again. And if it does, then you can leave me and it'll be fine. But I promise it'll never happen again. And so it only took a few months for it to be happening again. And by that point, I was already, starting to really try to stay in the marriage, because I learned growing up, and I don't know if any one of your viewers learned this also, but I learned that once you get married, you stay married. And I didn't want to be one of those negative stories where, she decided to leave him when he needed her. And so I tried to stick around, and his excuses were, well, I've been sneaking around taking pills, and I've been doing drugs, and I've been doing this, and like all these reasons why he was being so abusive. And every time I would take him back and say, let's figure it out, he would stop going to therapy. He would tell me he was going, get in his car and leave, and he'd go hang out with his friends. And so like time after time, and the abuse kept going. And so I did stay for several years, even though it was like really literally started off bad and then got worse. And, luckily one day I just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I decided to end it. And what's interesting is that actually after I left, I thought that I would just magically heal and feel better. And then I found myself again in some more crappy relationships. And so there was a lot of things that I had to figure out. And one of them was there was something consistent going on, and the consistent thing was me. And I think that when people start realizing that we have the ability to make changes and not just blame the other person for everything that's gone wrong, that's actually really empowering, because it was no longer all the ex's fault for treating me badly. It was now my responsibility to do something different next time and choose differently. And so to me, that's super empowering, because that means I could do something different. They're stuck reliving their same lives over and over again, but I don't have to be.
You got it. I love that. So, it's something you said before that I would like to start off today's discussion with. And that's love shouldn't hurt, right? So being in love shouldn't hurt. And I've seen that on your website. So I just wanted to put that out in the forefront of the conversation. Because love shouldn't hurt, but unfortunately it does, right? So the first question I have for you is, can a toxic relationship be salvaged?
So, I have not seen that happen. In my years of coaching people through this, I do not see toxic relationships being salvaged. Now, I say that, but also saying it is a good idea to look at what we are doing as well. And if it really is toxic, then that normally means that the other person, that you don't have two people that are looking to change and heal. If you have one person working on the relationship, that's not a relationship. That's super toxic. But if there are two people that are actively saying, hey, I want to change, is it possible? Yes. But most of the time, when people, at least by the time they come to me, there's one person that's saying, I'll do whatever it takes to make the relationship work. And the other person's like, yeah, me too. And they don't do anything. They're just hoping the other person, gets tired of it and just lets them keep going back and to being exactly how they were before.
Right. I think a lot of that comes from once you mentally check out, I think it's hard to bounce back from that. Because I've been in a position where, verbally I say I want it to work, right? As you were just speaking about. But I don't know, I was mentally checked out. So it was hard to get back into that space where I felt comfortable, I felt safe, I felt appreciated, And yeah, that's the one thing that's hard about life and relationships, is trying to get back that fire, that flame, that passion.
Yeah, but once you get there, I think it's too late already, because you've already probably tried to explain to them a million times how you want to be treated, what you want, and how you want things to be, and they've already not done that. So I think by the time you get to that point, you're already done. And I will say too that one of the reasons why it's so almost impossible for a toxic relationship to be fixed is because if you have someone that actually is showing narcissistic qualities, and if they are doing that, narcissism is super selfish. So they are never going to take responsibility for anything that they did wrong. So you're saying, oh, I probably have done something wrong. Let's fix it. Let's work on it. And other person's like, yeah, you did do something wrong. You should fix it. And I'm not going to do anything differently. And so that's not going to work. So of course you're checked out and you're done, because you've already said it a gazillion times and the other person keeps blaming you without taking any responsibility. I mean, my ex-husband, who was abusive, is still to this day single, and still to this day blames me for other women breaking it off with him and saying he was abusive. It's still my fault somehow. And we've been broken up for 15 years.
That's deep. And another part of that is this, once you get mentally checked out, even if a part of you still want to salvage it, I think a lot of that comes from influence from others, right? Like if other people showing you attention or affection or filling any void that was missing in your relationship, your mind is going to be focusing on that person or other people or the possibility that it's something greater out there. And I think that hinders a lot of us from giving a relationship another go, right? You agree with that?
I mean, sometimes, but I also think that a lot of times the reason why we are telling ourselves not to go is because we are afraid of what our family's going to say, especially if you're married. I grew up in a Christian household. We went to church every single Sunday. I actually did the Mother's Day sermon 2 years in a row. I mean, we were super into church. So getting a divorce was terrible. It was letting everybody down. And so I was really, really hoping and like really looking at the possibility of things getting better. So I see what you're saying, but I think there's also that other part where it takes so long to get to that place where you're finally like, maybe there is something better out there. But before that, we've already done a lot of stuff and been like, I can't do this anymore. I want to be successful. I don't want to be the reason why we're getting a divorce or to end this relationship because I don't want to let everybody down. But, it's one of those things where we just have to know at some point there is something better for us. So we have to stop trying to force what's not working and actually go to what is better for us.
Right. And, I wanted to add to something you just said, like, the influence from family, right? Like I've never been that type of person, but I know a lot of people that they care about how people are going to view them or what they're going to say about them. Like when it comes to a relationship with me, it's me and that person. I don't care about what nobody else got to say about it, how they feel about it. That's just me. But I know it's a lot of people out there that if their mom don't approve, their dad don't approve, their brother, sister, whoever, then that alters things, and that causes friction, and that causes you to not put your best foot forward as well. So I mean, I think that's one thing people will need to get away from is caring so much about what other people think and what they say and their opinions, because we all got opinions.
True, but I'll also say is that, I mean, how many of my friends told me this guy was super toxic and I made excuses for him over and over again. I was like, they're like, I was like, no, well, he's like that because he had a bad childhood. He's like that because, and again, I'd always give all these reasons. So I had friends. I actually had one friend at one point that was like, you're always invited to parties and everything else. He is not. And then I was like, well, that's messed up that I'm not going to go to the parties. So all that did is it ostracized me. It kept me away from my friends because I was still sticking up for him while they were really trying to warn me. And I just didn't want to hear it. And so I do say, I mean, sometimes, yes, there are people that are in your business when they shouldn't be and they don't know it and whatever. But we do have to be careful because most of the time people that are telling us they don't like something about someone, they're seeing something that we are oblivious to because we're looking with the wrong part of our brain. We're looking with our heart instead of with our thinking. We allow things in relationships that we would never allow our friends to do, but we put up with it with a partner.
Right. I mean, it's tough though, because, also on the flip side of that is sometimes people, they see things from their perspective. They're not in that relationship. And I don't know. That's what makes it hard about life, because sometimes you can't listen to outside influences. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know so many people, like the word red flag is thrown around way too much these days, right? It could be one negative thing that somebody don't like, and it's a red flag, and they try to warn you against that person, right? It could be a million green flags and one red flag, and people will tell you to stay away from them. So it's one of those things where you got to make your own judgment, right? You gotta live and you learn. You got to put yourself in the moment and just self-reflect and figure out what your boundaries are and what you're going to go for, what you're not going to go for. I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Again, like it's hard because sometimes we do get our judgment do get clouded, and we're blinded of reality. So sometimes we do need those people, but again, it's tough. It's tough. It's no instruction
but
manual.
it's what's right for you.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what's really important. So being loved shouldn't hurt, to go back to that for a second, that's actually the name of my book. I have a book and a workbook, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt. And I talk about my story. I talk about, healing. And then I talk about how other people can heal as well. And the workbook actually gives step-by-steps. And there's something that I think is really important for us to know, is that we attract who we are, not what we want. And
Right.
so if we have parts of ourselves that have not done the healing that we should, and I'm not saying we should go into a relationship where like, oh, we're all healed. Like, we're always healing. There's always lessons. There's always stuff to learn. In fact, being in a good relationship might bring out things that'll help you heal even more. So that's good. However, if home to you feels stressful, overwhelming, like you have to prove yourself, anxiety provoking, all those different things, if that's what home feels like to you, then you are going to keep recreating those patterns in new relationships that you have. So you might say, hey, this relationship is great, when everybody else is like, that's crap. Why are you saying this relationship is great? Well, it's great because it inside feels like what I'm used to. And so even though you might say, hey, I want a happy relationship with someone that I'm best friends with, that we get along, that we get to like hang out and do things and enjoy life and whatever, but you keep ending up with these crappy, toxic people. Well, home was probably toxic. There's probably something there that needs to be worked through, because like my husband now, I would not have been attracted to him until I did some of the work that I needed to do on me. He wouldn't have been my guy. But he was after I started to do the work. It's like I saw him in a different light. The people I was seeing before, I was attracted to these really toxic people because that's what I was used to. That's what felt normal. Like, I got to fight for it. This is causing me stress. I can't sleep at night. I got butterflies. Oh my gosh, this is love. And then once I started to do the work, I was like, whoa. Love is calm. Love is easy. You don't have to fight for it. It just is, and natural, and is accepting. That's what love is. Completely changed who I attracted and who I wanted in my life.
Okay, I love that. Love that. So, all right. So let me ask you this: do you think that couples therapy can work and improve relationships?
It can, and it can also make it worse.
How so?
So if you are with someone, you go back now. I don't love the word narcissist. I really do think it is completely overused. And in fact, there is a lot of studies that talk about it's really undiagnosed ADHD and not actually narcissism that everyone's really concerned about, because true narcissism is actually very rare. But there's a lot of people with ADD and ADHD that are not medicated and they don't know that they have ADD or ADHD. And they're very, very similar. If you look it up, anybody who's watching, it's amazing the research of how similar both of them come up. But if you have someone who's a narcissist or ADHD and you're going to therapy, they are going to make your life and the therapist's life miserable. If you are going to therapy because, like I said before, both of you are like, hey, I'm wrong. There's things I could do better. I will do whatever it takes to make this relationship work. Then relationship counseling could be amazing. But when I went to couple counseling with my ex-husband, I actually would leave and my husband would not talk to me for 2 weeks, or he'd yell and scream at me in the car, or tell me that I had made stuff up or embarrassed him in front of the therapist. And actually the therapist at one point asked him to leave. And she said, I'm very worried for your safety. And I was like, that's nothing compared to what I'm used to. So it was almost like she wasn't even ready for what she was seeing in front of her. And I was like, this is nothing compared to what it is. It was not helpful for me at all because I was with someone who was so incredibly toxic. So I think it really depends. If you are the only one who wants to go to therapy and the other person is just going because you're forcing them to, then it's already too late. It's already not going to mean anything.
Right. Got you. Yeah. I got one of my brothers. They do the couples therapy thing. I know a couple other friends that had marriage counseling and stuff like that. And from an outsider listening to their stories and stuff, it's kind of hard for me to figure out if it works or not. Because the one thing is true is we're all creatures of habit, and change is hard without putting in the hard work. Right. So a lot of times we get complacent and stuck in the mud, and we, putting in the actual work that's necessary falls to the wayside. Because it's like you might correct the situation, but then a week later, if you don't continue to do the work, it's not going to work. So that's what because like I'm a big fan and advocate of therapy, right? Because I do therapy, not couples
Same.
therapy or
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
like that.
Mhm.
But it's not. At one point, I was only consulting my therapist when something negative happened to me, and guess what? That didn't work. So then I had to be once a week. It's therapeutic. It helps, right? Or if something goes wrong, where I can just pick up the phone, text, or call my therapist, and it works. So that's the thing for me. I think couples therapy will work as long as you continue to do the work. You got to treat it like school. You got to have daily practices, daily homework that you do. Like, have your little checklist. Like, okay, am I doing this? Am I asking myself these questions for it to work? That's just my opinion. I am no therapist. I am no professional. I just live and learn, and I've been in a lot of relationships, so these are just my experiences.
I agree. And Allison
Yeah.
said you can't be closed-minded, and I completely agree with you, Allison. But both of you in the relationship have to be open-minded to that, to that conversation. And I actually would also like to say thank you for being open and honest about going to therapy, because men, we need you to go to therapy. It's not just women that need to go to therapy. Guys, you need to go too. It's not that you're broken, but there are things in us that we have learned that are not doing so good as adults. We learned it as kids because we didn't survive. It felt safer to be a certain way when we were younger. But when you're over 18 and you're not living at home anymore, it is no longer your parents' fault for all the crap that you keep doing over and over again. It is now your responsibility. And so the sooner you can go to therapy and talk to someone, because whether it's individual therapy or, couple counseling, it's really all about communication, learning yourself, understanding. And I will say one of the biggest things that I notice even for my husband now in my healthy relationship is that, sorry, it's my mom. Hold on one second. Is that it's not about what I can get out of the relationship. It's what I can give to the relationship, but we are both the givers. I think that when you are in a relationship where there is one person that is just giving, and the other one is continually taking, then that becomes a problem. So you have to be able to be the giver, you have to be the listener, and you have to be able to communicate. And in therapy, communicating your needs is a big part of it.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you this. Why do you think people try to gain power, control, and induce guilt in a relationship?
Because they're insecure.
Insecure?
That's my quick answer. Why would you need to have power control over anybody else?
That's true. That's true. So insecurity, okay. I mean, that's the root of everything. This is a big question that a lot of people, ask. And it has to do with insecurity, like you said, and lack of self control, or lack of identity, right? Because a lot of people that's looking for control and stuff like that, it's either people that was abused or people that don't know who they are as a person. Because once you find yourself, right, we talk about the people that don't sit with themselves to understand themselves, to have no value, no, like I said, no appearance, no identity, no nothing. It's just they just go through the motions, right? So for me, that's what that is. And it's hard. How does somebody break that cycle or that thought process?
I think that it goes back to just being open to saying, hey, I am not doing this right. I am trying to, because, even the people that I work with that have been in these unhealthy relationships, it's also about control. If I look at my unhealthy relationships, even though I was being controlled as well, I was also trying to control. And how was I doing that? Well, I see that they're messed up and I want to be the one who fixes it. That's controlling. Well, that's not my job. That's their job. And, you think about it, you're like, it's so hard to do your own work. Why did we ever think that we could fix somebody else who didn't want to be fixed, who didn't see a problem in what they were doing? So the control is a lack in ourselves of feeling like, I don't want to focus on my problems because you've got a lot of them. And now I'm going to focus on all of your problems. And it's easier. It's easier to look at what somebody else is doing wrong. We could all look around and be like, because everyone's got their things, right? We all do. So, I think it's just, it's not taking responsibility, and it is easier. And so when we do break it off or we're broken up with or whatever. And now all of a sudden we're by ourselves. Now we're like, ooh, this feels uncomfortable. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. There's like, you feel this very weird thing because you are a stranger to yourself because you've been so focused on the other person and who they are and what they're doing wrong and everything else that you don't even know who you are. So what do a lot of people do automatically? Those controlling people that want to fix other people and make sure that they're, teaching somebody else what to do, how to live their lives, then that person's going to go right into another relationship and start it all over again because they don't want to feel all those big feelings of their own problems. It's a lot easier to look at somebody else.
Right. I absolutely, I agree with that. And that's what happens a lot of times. The people that's looking for control, again, they don't have control. They don't have self-control, and it, like you said, they're not looking to be fixed because they view themselves as being perfect. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a major character flaw. I don't know how break. Uh, it's just like So, what is the definition and validity of narcissistic abuse?
So narcissistic abuse is really, it's my own definition is really just someone who, and there's different types, right? There's 4 different types of narcissistic abuse. There's the covert where you're not even really aware of what they're doing because they're so good at manipulating. There's the overt where it's obvious, like where you can see what they're doing. And then there's the other ones there. It's really all about power and control over somebody else. A narcissist will very much like someone who is successful. They'll like someone who's good arm candy. They'll like someone who's doing well for themselves. And then they will feel really bad about themselves, comparing themselves to the other person. And instead of trying to level themselves up, what they do is try to tear the other person down. And so that's why you see all this love bombing in the beginning of relationships, because the narcissist sees you as the prize, not as a person. You're not actually a person. For a true narcissist, you're not actually a person. You are a prize to be won. You're not allowed to have your own opinions. You're not allowed to have your own thoughts. You really are just this thing that they can have and have, have power over. And so as soon as you let your guard down, you're like, wow, that they were so wonderful. They took me on trips. They bought me things. They showed me, how wonderful life was and everything else. And now all of a sudden we're left feeling like, well, now they're being nasty to me. Now they're being hurtful. Maybe they're being physically abusive. Maybe they're being verbally abusive, whatever. We keep hoping they're going to go back to that person that they were, but that's never who they really were. They did all of that because of their own insecurities, their own, feelings of not being good enough. And now they're going to try to break you down and make you feel like you're good enough, not good enough. And so so it's weird because the whole reason why they were attracted to you is because of your success and your attractiveness and all those other things. But then once they're with you, it makes them feel bad about themselves. And then they try to break it down and make you feel bad.
I got you. So, as I said at the beginning, in part of my intro, I said I like to conversate, educate, and entertain. So, for the listeners and the viewers, I just want to say this. The word narcissist and narcissism is thrown around way too much. Now, technically, on technical terms, to be classified as a narcissist, you have to check off 5 out of the 9 boxes, right?
And the DSM-5. Yeah.
DSM-5, yes.
Yeah.
So it's not. So a lot of people these days, if they see one red flag, they'll be like, "Oh, you're a narcissist." That is not what a narcissist is. You have to check off 5 out of the 9 boxes to be classified as a narcissist.
That's why it's very rare for someone to be a true narcissist. They might have symptoms or show signs of narcissism, but there's not very many true narcissists.
Right. And so I just wanted to put that out there because I say this all the time to people and then a lot of people lie. Oh, this person check off all 9. No way. This is the thing. When we talk about narcissistic traits, we all have them, right?
Yeah.
It's about if you might have exhibit 1, 2, something like that, but that doesn't make you. Somebody asked me when I told them that you have to check off 5 boxes, like, well, how many do you check off? And I check off 3, maybe 4. I am not a narcissist though, because the biggest thing that one of the boxes is lack of empathy. I have an abundance of empathy, right? Mm-hmm. I feel for people. Sometimes I feel like that's my kryptonite. I feel like I care too much about people and their feelings and things of that nature. So that's one thing I do not check off of. And, another one, let's see, off the top of my head, because I don't remember all 9, but one of them is, the control thing. You have to feel control. You want that control over somebody. You always um not overindulge, but you over exaggerate your qualifications or your talents and stuff like that. You always want to be in the spotlight, right? Um, Now somebody said I check that off, but I don't, because I don't have to be in the spotlight. I just like to feel validated. I like to feel appreciated. So I might speak about my talents or things that I do, but I don't speak of it as if I'm God. Like I'm that guy. That's not who I am. So again, you have to check off 5 out of the 9 for anybody that's listening. That's my little educational piece. Uh, so sticking with the narcissistic, right? Is narcissistic abuse a psychological diagnosis, or is it a cultural label that's overly stigmatized? That over stigmatizes mental illness.
Oh, it's totally overly stigmatized. I mean, it is definitely a mental illness. It definitely happens, but it is a better chance of somebody having like borderline personality disorder, or like I said before, ADHD. While you were talking, I was looking up it, and really, like, if you're listening to this, look up ADHD. I would say 9 times out of 10, those people that you think actually have narcissism actually have undiagnosed ADHD, or they have unmedicated ADHD. But the difference is that like you said, with caring about other people, that's going to be it, but they're showing a whole bunch of other signs that might be ADHD, but not narcissism, because narcissists, they don't actually care. They pretend to care to make others feel bad for them, but they don't actually care. It's all just a ploy to get people's attention and all that other kind of stuff. So yeah, it is definitely something that is, I mean, even like people talk about sociopaths. Like, oh, they're a sociopath, they're a psychopath, they are a narcissist. All those things are possible. The amounts are very small that they are. But again, it's more like some of the symptoms of it. And I will say too, and don't anyone get mad at me, but it is really good it is easier to tell people that you were with a narcissist than to explain really just the bad relationship and like move on from it. And let me say this a different way. When people come to me, they're experts on narcissism. They're like, okay, so he was a covert narcissist with varying types of blah, 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 and like workbook, like they've gone through all of the things. How does that help you heal?
Right.
How does it help you heal? I'm glad in the beginning part is understanding. When we are first learning who we are and what happened, because that's what it is. I mean, realistically, so I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad. When we first go through it, you're like, holy crap, what just happened? Okay, let me go do some research. So we're smart people. Let me go what's online? Everything's about narcissism. Okay, let me go watch some videos. Oh my gosh, that's it. That's what it is. They're checking off the boxes. Then we're not taking responsibility for any of the things that we did. Right. And so then we can be like, well, it's all their fault. They did something wrong. And as abusive and terrible as my first husband was, I did things that were not so great either. I can take responsibility. It's not okay what he did. But there were things that I did where I shouldn't have stayed, where I shouldn't have put up with those things. And so after we do that research and we learn about all the psychological reasons why people did something, I think it's really important to quickly move on to the next phase, which is, okay, got it. They're messed up. Got it. Okay. Now what am I going to do to heal so I don't ever get into a relationship like that again?
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because, that's another saying that's out there, that we attract like-minded people, correct? So this is the thing. One of my pet peeves is hearing people say, oh, every relationship I get into is with a toxic person. Well, look yourself in the mirror. That means you're toxic as well. You're like-minded, right? You have to ground yourself. You have to spend time with yourself and figure out who you are, as we said before, and what you're going to put up with, what you're not going to put up with. Because if you keep attracting the same people, that's a character flaw in itself, right?
And it's not about blame. And I don't want anyone to be like, we're blaming you. It's not about blame at all. In fact, I really think it's about empowerment. If I know that I am the same person in each one of these relationships, and I keep attracting different types of people with like different faces, but the same problems or similar problems, then I'm doing it somehow. And I got to figure that out, because I don't want to keep doing it. And I think that is something that's really important to empower ourselves with, is to be able to do that.
Right. I'm not sure, Elaine. I don't know who that is, but I mean, we're talking about relationships going wrong until we're getting it right. It's the theme of the whole conversation. So let's see. Does every abuser suffer from narcissistic personality disorder, or does typical domestic abusers and individuals with narcissistic personality disorder use different motives and tactics to con- I'm sorry, to control others?
So I don't remember the statistics. It's actually not every abusive person is a narcissist.
Right.
But you do have to have, I mean, who in a healthy brain is going to be physically abusive or emotionally abusive to another person?
Right.
So, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So if we can explain to them all day long what they're doing is wrong. They probably know. It's not like they're like, oh, you're right, I shouldn't be strangling you. Like, they know that they shouldn't be doing that. But they're doing it. So,
Yeah.
it's like, so it doesn't, there is statistics where it's like, it's not every person, but in order for you to be abusive, you do need to have some kind of mental illness. There has to be something going on, because healthy people, we've all been through crap. Every single
Right.
one of us, especially get to a certain age, we've all seen things, we've all experienced things. Every single one of us have had some kind of trauma. I don't go around beating people up because of it. In fact,
Right.
I'm even more empathetic. I care more about people
Right.
because of the trauma that I've experienced. So,
Right.
it doesn't mean that I have to go and do those same things. But if somebody does have a mental illness, and not all mental illness is going to make you be abusive, but if they have something like they're a psychopath, sociopath, narcissism, borderline personality disorder, or something like that, then it does put them at a greater risk, again, because they're not seeing themselves as needing to change or do anything different. And they are
Right.
going to blame the victim as opposed to themselves.
Right. Now, earlier you mentioned how sometimes people show up one way and then they turn into a different person, right? So the question I'm gonna ask is, why do some narcissists maintain a charming, empathetic persona in public while inflicting severe emotional abuse entirely behind closed doors?
To make us look crazy. And
Mm.
it keeps us from getting help. So
Right.
like, just for example, like I would, with my first husband, we would go out and he would whisper to me, people don't really want to hear what you have to say. And I'd be like,
Right.
wait, what? Oh, because I've always been a friendly, outgoing person. And that's one of the things he loved about me when we first got together. And then, he'd whisper. And so nobody else could hear. So everyone's laughing and having a good time. And now I just got someone who's supposed to be my best friend and love of my life, who I'm married to, just tell me that I'm being too much and you'd better quiet down. And I'm like, oh, maybe they are. Maybe I am being too loud. Maybe I am too much. Maybe this is a problem that I need to work on. I'm just listening to what they're saying. And so over time, I got to be less and less talkative in front of friends. Or if I would go out, he would text message me a gazillion times, so I couldn't even enjoy time with my friends, because I knew if I didn't answer the phone quickly enough, he would show up. He would actually show up to where I was. So,
Yeah, that's crazy.
but like, people didn't know. I would be hanging out with my friends like, well, Stephanie, you're being rude. Why are you looking at your phone all the time? Well, I'm looking at my phone all the time because I don't answer. He's going to show up here and it's going to be a scene. So, it just, and it made me look crazy. I had someone at one point, they're like, you like being in this abusive relationship. And I was like, how could you say I like it? And they're like, because you stay. And I was like, no, I don't. But that's that brain, that part of what they do to make you feel crazy. So at one point I looked around, I barely had friends because I didn't want to hang out with people because it was going to be a problem. He was going to accuse me of cheating. He was going to show up and make a scene. He left me places 2 separate times, just left me on the side of the road one time, left me at a wedding one time because he got mad at me. I don't even remember what I did. He would just do those things. But it was normally when we were by ourselves, we'd have fun with our friends. I remember going into New York City, hanging out with our friends all night. It was like 4:00 in the morning. We had just had the best time. And I fell asleep on the train and he left me on the train and went to his car. And there was no fight. There was no problem. He just left me on the train by myself at it was now 5:00 in the morning.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's insane.
But when I told my friends the next day, they're like, what? because I didn't always tell. There was a lot of times where I didn't tell anybody because I was so embarrassed, and I kept thinking it was me because they would see him and he'd be so charming. Well,
Right.
but we just had such a fun time with him. He was making jokes. He was the life of the party. Everybody thought he was so friendly. He was a great salesman. He was great at
Yeah.
pretending like he was this other person. And then behind closed doors, he would be terrible. And so
Yeah.
I think what that does is it keeps us from having those friend groups. We don't have the people to support us. We feel really isolated. I mean, he would try to keep me from even talking to my parents about what was going on. So,
Yeah.
you can't have control over someone if they have too many friends, if they have too many supports. It's a lot
Right.
easier to have control over someone when you've taken them away from everybody and now
Right.
they're just all yours. And now you also feel even more trapped because I have
Right.
nobody. What am I going to do? Where
Right.
am I going to go? I don't have anybody to go to. I'm completely alone.
Right. And that's the thing. You know, a narcissist, they want to be the hero, right? They don't want the person they with to have allies, right? They don't ever want to be the villain. So that's part of that persona, right? Like, oh, I'm such a great guy, or I'm such a great woman, and this person is so ill or fucked up that she's making me look bad, and that's what it comes down to. And you said it earlier, it's insecurity, insecurity. Um, but
He
to
would,
add to
I'll
that, though,
just
like,
stop you. I'll stop right there too. He would literally go and like buy me. We would go on these beautiful, like expensive dinners or buy me like for my birthday. He would make all these big plans and do all these things. There was one time for my birthday that we went out again, same kind of thing. We had a great night all night long. We invited all my friends. We danced until like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, had a great time. And then I was literally sleeping. He pulled the sheets off of me and started yelling in my face. And I mean, when you're dead asleep and you're getting yelled at in your face, and we'd been drinking, but I was sleeping. I was literally in bed sleeping. Pulled the sheets off of me, starts yelling in my face. And I got startled and I went like this, just lifted my arm up because I was like, he called the police.
oh yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, he called the police. And he was all wild. And the police officers came to my house and they were like, what's going on? I'm like, well, and I was so embarrassed. It was supposed to be my birthday, all these things. And then, they luckily that time had him leave the house. But then like during as things progressed, he would say to me, he's like, you never appreciate any of the nice things that I do for you. And so that's the kind of mind like, fuck they do, right? Where it's like, really? I don't appreciate the nice things that you do because you do these nice things and then you do something so crazy and awful that other people don't see. So I look like the crazy person because I'm not appreciative of him for going and spending all this money and doing all these things, but they didn't see him wake me up at 4 a.m. and, call the police on me for sleeping. It's like, I mean, it is crazy the amount of manipulation that goes on.
Right. So, okay. So are narcissistic people truly responsible for their emotional abusive behaviors, or do their cognitive limitations and lack of emotional management exempt them from full culpability?
Yeah, they're still responsible.
Still responsible. So okay. So
but I
I
see what you're saying.
Right. So you think a narcissist consciously want to be a narcissist? Or as we spoke about before, do you think that's like a disorder of some sort?
Well, I mean, and again, it depends. A true narcissist, it's actually something missing that all the connections are not connecting in their brain. So it can be when it's an actual disorder. But, I think that you're still responsible as an adult. You kill someone, it's still your fault for killing someone.
Yeah. That's true.
I don't care what the issue is. I mean, if you kill someone in self-defense, they've hurt your child, something like that, like murder them. Like, I don't care. But like, you got mad because you're a narcissist and you decided to strangle someone to death. Like, no, that's not a good excuse. Like, sorry, you need to do better.
It's never an excuse. I mean, I guess more so I was asking, like, should they be given a little grace? Or should they just, no, you fucked up and you're a fucked up individual. You deserve what's coming to you.
And you should stay away from people. There should be a warning sign that is like, hey, stay away from this person, or like at least a warning. I mean, again, if somebody actually took responsibility to change themselves and work on themselves, that would be great.
Right.
But if they
Right.
are not going to do that, they're going to keep doing it to somebody else. And I literally, because I've written a book, because I have a podcast, I've had more than a few of my ex-girlfriends contact me to ask
Yeah.
me if they were safe. And they were like, are we safe? And I was like, oh, okay, well, tell me a little bit about what's going on. They have children or whatever. And I'm like, if they come by you, then you need to go get an order of protection. And I will often say, like, but you ladies did way better than me because you didn't stay as long. So
Right.
already I give you a heads up. I don't know if that means he got worse because he started to hate women even more or whatever it was. But he has not had more than like a year or two relationship because it's
Right.
always still my fault as opposed to it being his own. So I think you're still responsible. I think it's possible to make some changes. And if you can't, then don't get into a relationship. Just be honest and say, hey, I'm going to hurt someone. So it's better for me to be single than to be with someone that I know I'm going to hurt. That would be the nice thing to do.
Right. Gotcha. Now, I want to shift gears to more so about relationships, but I want to ask this question before that. Let's just say a man that or a woman that lacks longevity in relationships, is that a red flag to you?
Sometimes it's that longevity is that fear because sometimes it's also like they're looking for a problem. So they are the runners, they're like, oh, there's a problem. I'm going to run. So
Right.
sometimes that's a red flag. If somebody comes to me and I had someone like this, and I actually figured out really quickly what was going on. She came to me for help and she was like, I don't know why I can't find a relationship. Nothing's lasted more than like a month or two. And as we started working together, I realized she was severely controlling and there was no responsibility for self. And so that was the reason. You can't be in a relationship and then control every single thing the other person does. That's not going to work. So,
Definitely not.
yeah. And so I think that you really have to look at why is it? I mean, it can't be that, yes, you're looking for the right person. That's important. And to have certain things that you're looking for. I also think it's very important to have high standards, but we also need to look at ourselves. Am I expecting all these high standards, but I'm not doing them for myself? Like one of my favorite high standards is, well, and this is sometimes men, sometimes women, but like, hey, I want someone to be in really great shape. Okay, well, are you in really great shape? Have you been taking care of yourself? Like, do you have a great job? Do you have all these things also? Or are you just looking for somebody else that has those? Because you're not going to find those things. You're not being real. You're not being honest. You're going to find, you're going to, like we said in the beginning, you're going to attract what you are. So if you are someone that's looking for those things, you're not going to find them, or you're going to find someone who needs help. And then you're going back to the toxic type of relationship again.
Gotcha. Okay. So can you truly appreciate the right relationship without experiencing the wrong ones?
That's a good question. I think that, and I'd love to hear your thought on this, but I truly believe that light survives and is appreciated because of darkness. So I do think, life in general, if everything was perfect all the time, we'd be bored. So we would look for something to be upset about.
Yeah.
So in saying that, I think that we can learn a lot from the darkness. We can learn a lot from the things that have not gone well in our lives, and we can appreciate those positive things so much more. I would like, though, to be in a world where we have taught our children to be healthy and to choose healthier types of partners so that they don't have to go through those kinds of same experiences, because there's way other terrible things that could go on in life. If we can give them the tools to not settle for someone who treats them badly, so that part of their life is already something like, well, I'm not going to settle. I'm going to be with my best friend. I'm going to be with someone who treats me nice. I'm going to also be someone who treats my partner nice, who listens and communicates, and we're there to help each other and all that. You get that kind of beautiful cohesiveness. Nothing can stop you. Now you're stronger together. It's an amazing thing. And if you can have that from the very beginning, if your parents taught you that and you are with someone who's also learned that, beautiful. That's amazing. I think you can really understand and really appreciate that. But I think for those of us who haven't, I think there is that possibility to learn and not get stuck in what we've done before and really appreciate the positive of a beautiful relationship after we've done some of that work and seen what's possible.
Got you. Now you said you wanted my insight. My thing is this: like you basically took the words out of my mouth. It's like none of us would know what right is if we didn't face the wrong things. We don't
Mm-hmm.
know what's good if we don't know what's bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's like trial and error, right? You need to know what the darkness is before you get to the light, because it's not to go biblical, but it's like in Genesis in the Bible, that's when everything was perfect before the Garden of Eden, and they didn't know if the other one had clothes on or not. They didn't know what nakedness was versus being fully clothed. They didn't know none of that. Now, when they bit the apple and they took in that, now their eyes was open, they can see a lot of things. So it's kind of like that. So you need the bad with the good, right? That's what life is all about.
But we don't
I
want to
don't
go
think
around looking for the bad.
Yeah,
Like,
no, you don't want to go
oh,
around looking for it, but it's life lessons. That's all it is.
yes.
So that's why, like, for me, I don't really look at like mistakes or bad things as failures. I just look at them as a learning curve. All right, well, I was faced with this. I know where I want to be. So what can I learn from here? What can I take from this to make me better? And that's how you got to approach everything in life. So the relationships is no different. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, you need to experience the bad before you can get to the good.
And
You know.
I'll say what's really interesting. So God, universe, I say universe, but it's God. When you think about how things work for us when we want certain things. And so I was in high school and I remember saying, like, I remember going through the channels and I went onto PBS and I saw Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I don't know if
Mm.
anybody's watching this knows Dr. Wayne Dyer. He's since passed away, but he was a public speaker and motivational speaker. And so he would talk all the time about, like, things we could do to improve our lives and get, for humanity to be together. And it was really this beautiful thing. And I remember listening to him, and he's still one of the highest amount of like views on PBS to this day, even though he's been dead for like 10 years or whatever. And,
Right.
and I remember watching him in high school and I was like, I want to be a motivational speaker. That's what I want to do. And my parents were like, well, you're not going to be a motivational speaker, but you could be a teacher. You should be a teacher. And I was like, oh, I
Right.
guess I can't be a motivational speaker. And so I became a teacher. I was a teacher for 18 years. And what's funny is that all through that time, I was getting exactly what I wanted. I would have had a very boring motivational speech if I had a perfect childhood, with a perfect college education, to a perfect job, to a perfect life, to a perfect relationship. Who's going to listen to that boring speaker?
Right. Right.
Right? But what I got as a gift, which wasn't a gift at the time, was my story of the overcoming. The overcoming is what the story is. It's the
Right.
success in overcoming was difficult. And all of us have that story. That's the
Mm.
hero's journey of going through
Right.
something terrible and coming out of the other side and being like, oh, that was rough. And I don't ever want to do that again. But let me tell you what happened so that you don't have to do that. And now some people are going to listen and some people are like, nah, I got to do that all by myself. I got to learn myself. But that was the story. That was the gift that I got from the universe that said, I'm going to give you what you want.
Right.
But I'm not going to give it to you the way that you want it. But I am grateful for that opportunity to have exactly what I wanted because of that experience.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, all right. Speaking about getting it wrong until we get it right. Is finding the right person about luck?
No, I don't think so. When
Mm.
I teach my clients, I think that, like I said before, I would have never been attracted to my husband back before I had done any work on myself. He would not have been the guy that I would have chosen.
Right.
But first of all, I got really good at having my own life. I got really good at being happy with who I was, what I was doing with myself. I was traveling. I was having fun with my friends. I was really building my own life where I literally didn't need anybody. And I was at a place where I was like, if I don't ever get into another relationship again, I'm actually totally fine with it. And at the time I
Mm.
didn't have kids. And I was like, you know what? I might never have children, even though it's something that I really want, but I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it
Right.
go and see what happens. Again, letting go of control, which is hard for a lot of us. But let it go. And I'm going to allow it
Right.
to happen. I'm just going to build the most amazing, beautiful life. And I did that. And I dated, just to like have stories. And there were some terrible, terrible dating stories. They're always very funny.
I think we all got those.
Yes, right. I did all those, but I was still like, yeah, but I didn't care because it was just like, I don't even care if I find anybody. It really is just like, I'm having fun and this is silly and whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. And so I wasn't coming from a place of, I need a relationship. And if I'm not in a relationship, I am, useless or whatever. I really didn't want or care even. And so when I met my now husband, I even said to him, like, I don't even think I want to be in a relationship ever again. And he was like, okay. And then by like the third date, he was like, well, I'm not going to date anybody else. And if you want to date other people, it's fine. But I'm going to just, I'm turning off my dating apps. I don't want to be with anybody else. And so I was like,
you say you told him that early on?
Right away.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Like,
I did, because I literally, like, when I say I didn't care, I didn't. If you want to go, if I'm going to be me and be real and be honest, and you don't want that, then fine. I am okay with that. And he was like, I'm not going to, he's like, I don't want you, I don't want to be sitting around waiting for you. If you don't want me, then, tell me. And so I actually almost broke it off with him because I was like, I just really want to be single. I mean, that's really how much I wanted to be single. And so I looked into his eyes and I was like, the day I was going to break it off with him, I looked into his eyes and I was like, I feel like I should give this guy a chance. Like, this guy, there's something about him that I really do need to give him a chance. And so I did. And he literally, I had in my brain, I wanted someone who was 6'3". I wanted someone who didn't have any children. I wanted someone who was family oriented, who was spiritual. I mean, who played guitar. I mean, there was literally, I had a list of the things that were I really want, the maybes, it would be great if they have it. And the absolutely, I don't ever want that ever again. And all of those things he checked off on. And so that's why when you say, like, is it luck? I don't think so. I think I changed my own tuning. I changed who I was attracting, and I changed who I was attracted to. And once I got really clear on what I wanted for me, who would be the best fit for me, not who is going to be someone that I can change and become someone different in order for them to like me. I wasn't a pick me. It was who is going to be the right fit that's going to add to my life and help my life get better while I also do the same. And so we got together and we actually help women heal from unhealthy relationships together, which I never could have imagined in any of my past relationships that anyone would be doing that with me. So it really was meant to be, but I had to allow myself to go through all of that to get to that place.
Sometimes it's that thought process drives you crazy though, because I know a lot of people that they have these unreasonable high expectations. They have checklists like you just said you have, or it has to be this height, has to be this way. And a lot of times when you do that to yourself, you're hindering yourself. You're not walking through life with your eyes open, right? It's like, oh, if it's not everything on this list, I don't want it. And that's a lot of times what happens is that's when you fall victim to finding the wrong person. Because if you have an extensive checklist, that means you're looking for perfection. You're looking for the perfect man and not the right man.
Well, and I think that's the right person would still be that list. So like, for example, like I didn't even want to date a bald man. I didn't. That was not on my list. I wasn't finding what I wanted until like literally the day where I was like, it's okay if they're bald. And that's when I met my husband. So
that's you changing it though. But like if you have a set checklist.
But that's the problem. As you grow and heal, there are things that, and so what I teach my clients is as you start dating, you start going through like, what is it that I'm actually looking for? So like one of the things on my list was like, I wanted someone to be a professional and, already successful and whatever. And I got that. I got a guy that was amazing. He was wonderful. He was also working 60, 80 hours a week. And I was like, I don't want that. So let me take that off because I've now experienced that. Nope, that's not actually what I want. Let me change that on my list. And so I wanted an entrepreneur that wanted to focus on changing the world and making it better. That was more specific to what I wanted. So you're right in that if you are so unmoving, because we're human beings, we're not stagnant. We're not stuck. We grow. We should be growing. If you're not growing, you're dying. So you need to be growing. But as you're dating, you should be looking at, you know what? I don't want someone like this. I do want someone like this. And I have a lot of clients that will come to me like, well, I know what I don't want. Well, guess what? If you're going to be in a car accident and you're staring at the pole, guess what you're going to hit? The pole. You got to look at what you want. So you look at what the direction of you want. And so again, there's the have tos, like I don't want someone who smokes cigarettes. I've done that. I don't want someone who parties up all night long, but I want them to have partied in their life because I don't want them to be, I want them to experience life. That's cool. But I don't want them to party every night because I've had that, and so like there's those things. And there's some of them, like some people might like, even the types of music. You're like, because if I have to be in a 12-hour car ride and I got to listen to that crap for 12 hours, I'm going to throw them out the window, So people might think that's being too ridiculous, but you're going to be with this person all the time. So, again, I think that there are people that are too rigid that aren't learning what's best for them, because you have to see what's like, who's going to fit with me and my personality and what I want for myself, where we're going to enrich each other's lives. Not, like I said before, if you want someone who's athletic and does all these things, but you sit on the couch eating bonbons all day, that's a silly thing to have on your list. You're not going to have anything in common. What are you going to do? Like when they're talking about going to the gym all the time and you're whatever, like, well, I'm going to watch another show. Like you're not going to find that. So, but somebody else that also likes to do Netflix and chill and they don't want to go to the gym, that's going to be a better fit for you. So it's really just knowing yourself and what you are looking for in another person.
Got you. All right. So, all right, let me ask you this. What's the difference between compromising and settling?
Compromising to me is two people talking about it and figuring it out together. Settling is, I wanted someone who had a job, but I'm going to go with someone who doesn't have a job because I feel like I'm getting too old or there's nothing else and this is the best that I can get. Right. I think that there's a lot of people that do settle. And I think that's one of the reasons why we get into such bad relationships to begin with. My first husband was definitely settling. I was settling because I thought I was 28 years old. My friends were getting married. I wanted to have children. I wanted those things. I saw some of the red flags. I saw some of his anger issues. And I thought, well, my dad has some anger issues. So, maybe that's something I can deal with. When I at first had said, I don't want anyone with really bad anger issues. And then because I felt like I was getting so much older and and I'd not found the right person yet. I was like, maybe it is okay if they have some anger issues. Maybe it is okay if they have these other things that were big no's for me before, where suddenly, because I hate to say, I didn't think I was desperate, but I felt that way. I was desperate to get married. I was desperate to have children. I was desperate to be in a relationship because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And so settling was going against really some of my values, and that we should never go against.
I agree. Now it's something that I read somewhere, and I took a note that I wanted to say on today's podcast, which is no one is perfect, and getting it right is about humility, self-reflection, and conflict resolution skills. If you don't learn how to love intentionally, even a perfect match will fail. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think one of the things, even my husband and I now, if we are not in service to each other, we're not helping each other, if we are not learning from each other and listening to each other, we will not get along as well. And I think that's, you really have to look at, if you are in the relationship for what can I get out of this person, you're going to fail. It's going to be a very unhealthy relationship. Neither one of you are going to be happy because you're not perfect. Like sometimes I mess up. But to be able to have someone say like, and I'll say this quick story. When we were first married, I just had our second child. So I guess we were a few years married. And I talked to my sister and I was like, you know what, I'm going to come visit you. And I lived in New York at the time. My sister lived in Colorado. And I was like, hey, I really want to do a half marathon. She's like, oh, you should come to Colorado and whatever. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Let's just do it. I literally booked this whole trip. We had a whole conversation about it. Never spoke to my husband about it at all. And I didn't think twice. And then I got off the phone and my husband was like, did you just plan a trip with our children to Colorado? And I was like, yeah. And I got defensive. My initial instinct was get defensive. Like, you can't tell me what to do. First instinct. And he said, I would never tell you not to go anywhere. all I am asking is that before you make a big plan to do something, we just talk about it first. And I was
Right.
like, oh, that's a part of me that I need to work on, because he wasn't coming from a place of anger. He wasn't coming from a place of anywhere else. My past, my baggage that I brought into that relationship was, if I ask, he might say no. That was my
Mm.
problem, not his. So it was easier for me to let him be angry at me and just do it. And because I
Right.
didn't want to ask permission, which I didn't have to ask permission. I just needed to talk to him about it like an adult, like a partner. And so him being able to call me out, and I came back to him a little while later, because I was like, I really thought about it. And I was like, the reason why I did it is because I felt like asking was me having to get permission, and that it was
Right.
easier for me to ask forgiveness than to
Right.
ask to do it. And he was like, okay, I get it. He's like, but I'm never going to tell you no. I want you to
Right.
go and do all those things. And so I think when when you get to that kind of place in your relationship, you can heal parts of you that you didn't know still needed to be healed. I didn't know that was a problem. I didn't know that I was carrying that baggage into that relationship, but in a safe place, you can call each other out while still
Right.
supporting each other and still being, still caring for each other.
Right. And that's one of the fundamental pieces to a relationship, a successful relationship, anyways, is that safe space. If you're in a relationship and you don't have that safe space, it's not good for you, right? And I fell victim to that as well. Like, not that I had to ask for permissions, but like you said, I'd rather ask for forgiveness than ask, because once we have our mindset on something, like we want to have fun, or we envision this whole elaborate dream or experience, and then you like, oh, if she or he said, "Oh, I'm not okay with that," then you wind up not doing it. Now you're gonna live with a regret. You're gonna say, "Oh, I regret not going. I wish I would have did it." So a lot of times that's what we do. We
Mhm.
just say fuck it and we just do what we want to do, and our partners look at it as disrespect. So
Yeah.
I like how you said your husband said that he would never tell you no. He just want to feel included. He want to feel like a partner. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? And that's what it is, about feeling that cohesion. It's not so much about asking for permission, because I know for me, I don't like that feeling of, oh, I'm a child, you the parent type of thing. No,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like you said you had to heal from that. That's something I still have to heal from, because in my last relationship, it's been several times I'm like, man, you know what? Shit. Or I make excuses, right? And I don't like to lie about little stuff, but I might make excuses like, oh, I'm going here, knowing I'm going somewhere else. Right?
But I'll say too is that in the right relationship, you don't have to do that either. And so in the right relationship, you are going to be able to be like, hey, I'm going to this place. And they're gonna be like, okay, we've got something tomorrow. Just make sure you're home at 2. And that's not them trying to control you. That's just them reminding you you've got responsibilities. And so I think that somebody said to me once, she's like, there are dancers and there are non-dancers. The dancers have to find each other. And I was
Mm,
like, that's kind of a funny saying, but it's really good. You have
yeah.
to find the people that have those similar things as you do. Someone who thinks that you talk too much, but you love talking, is not going to be the right fit. Someone that
Right.
doesn't like that you like to go out. Now, if you're going out and you're like have a problem, then that's a whole
Yeah.
different conversation. But I like to go out I like to listen to music. I like to go out and whatever. If I had someone that was like, well, you can't go out, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to my friend's house, and I would do it anyway. And it would be a problem. But to be
Yeah.
with someone who's completely like, go do whatever you want to go. Okay, fine, go, cool, go. It's not going to be an argument. So finding that person that is
Yeah.
supportive of you actually being you, when you
Right.
find that, that's what's important.
Like, one of the things I tell a lot of people in relationships is this, or trying to get into a new relationship is, how I've heard this my whole life. When I got with a woman that have kids, they always say my kids is a package deal, right? So the same thing applies to everything, every aspect. Like, my dreams got to become your dreams, right?
Yeah.
My success got to be your success. My failures got to be your failures, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want somebody to say, "No, if you fail, it ain't got shit to do with me, because I'm not going to be a failure," can from right off, that lets you know that that's not the right fit for you,
Yeah.
right? Because it's about immersing yourself in that other person, right? That's when you know you have something good going. When your dreams is not their dreams, and I'm not saying you gotta want what they want, but you
Yes.
gotta want it badly enough. Like, you gotta want them to have that success. You want that bad. You want to, you know what I'm saying? And so that's fundamental in a relationship. You gotta want what the other person want, right?
I
If that's
couldn't
gonna make you
imagine.
happy.
Yeah, and I couldn't imagine. I mean, my husband and I, we have this dream together of
Right.
helping people, and
Right.
that was something that when we first started dating, I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever met a man that was so focused on service to others. And I remember we were talking about, and I never really met like a true entrepreneur before, like people that had ideas about doing things, but not actually doing any of them. And where my husband, so David is his name. So where David was like, oh yeah, he's like, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. This is what I did when I was in high school. This is what I did at this point, like, whatever, but this is the dream that I have. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. Like, talked about like opening up a wellness studio together and how many millions of people could we help if we work together. And, one of the first, someone that I know met us together and they're like, oh my gosh, you two are like tag teaming, where I'm like motivated and excited to change and work on these things just from you two talking. Like, that's wonderful. And they said, they're like, you, Stephanie, by yourself, you do great. And David, you by yourself, you do great. But when the two of you come together, it's like a force. You can feel the energy and how that works together. And I was like, it's true. You really can. But we had to have that similar vision. I couldn't imagine doing this. People say, how do you work with your husband? I couldn't do this with anybody else. It wouldn't work. It had to be him. And it had to be like the other day, like there was something not working and I was like, you're going to have to redo this website or whatever. And I was like, I am so sorry. And I really appreciate, you working on this. I know it's not always your dream. And he was like, well, but we have a big dream. And the big dream is for this to be successful together. And I was like, you're right. This is totally, if I can do it and he can support that, it's there to help each other. There's not one person that's trying to outshine the other person. It's both, you both have the same dream. And I think when you can find that, it's just,
it's magic.
Beautiful.
It's magic.
It is. It really is.
Yep. So does the trial and error philosophy cause some people to abandon perfectly good relationships at the first sign of friction?
I think sometimes I think when you don't want to learn how to communicate, I think, but you're going to always, you will be that person that can't stay in relationships if you can't communicate, if you can't talk things through and talk about problems, because again, we're human. And if you're not going to be in a relationship with a doll, like they're a human, they have their own thoughts, their own ideas, everything else. They make some pretty impressive dolls nowadays, but that's kind of boring. It's like if you're going to be in a relationship with a human being, they're going to have differences of opinions, and to be able to work through them and talk them out. Again, I'm not saying going against your values, but when you have those differences of opinions, being able to hear each other and talk it through is going to be important, because if not, you're never going to be able to stay in anything healthy.
Got you. Okay. Is the goal of a healthy partnership to fight less, or to learn how to fight better by taking an us versus the problem approach?
Yeah, you're definitely, and I don't necessarily like the word fight, which is probably fight. I think of more physical, and I'm sure, everyone's got their own feelings about it. Disagreements, discussions, disagreements, I think, is probably a better term, because it's not about winning. It's about figuring it out together. And sometimes it's like, you know what? I don't 100% see it. I don't need to. I know that you're very passionate about it, and I'm going to support that. And I'm going to, try to see your perspective sometimes. But again, the problem is it can't always be, it's not a give and take or like a keeping score. I think that's the worst thing you can do. And I've seen more than a few marriages break up because they literally kept score. Well, I always say I'm sorry first, or you always do this, or the last time, you can't do that. It's like, okay, like you said, like it's the issue versus us. Like, okay, here's the problem that we need to discuss and figure out what the solution is together, as opposed to I'm angry at you personally, and this is a personal attack against you. Like, do you love each other in the end? If the answer should be yes, I hope, then let's figure it out together to come up with the best solution.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of us like that, that wherewithal to understand that. Golly, I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. This is crazy. I don't know where this came from. Like, for like the last 3-4 hours, I just feel so like congested. I was like, oh my God, right when I got a podcast, I was like, I
There
hope
are
I can
some
get through it.
allergies going on though. Let me tell you, like there is some crazy allergies. Like I'm from New York, I live in Texas now, and all of a sudden I'm like,
Yeah.
there are some things in the air. Like I don't know what's happening. Some like there was like a week where my eyes, I'm like, am I dying? Like why do I feel so tired? So like,
Yeah.
I get it.
Are you familiar with the 3-6-9 rule in a relationship?
No, tell me.
Okay, so all right, so let me ask you this, and it'll kind of break it down for you. Do you agree with the dating theory that that the first 3 months is for pure chemistry, the 6th month shows behavioral problems, and the 9th month dictates if you can build a future with that person or not?
I mean, yeah, that doesn't sound that far off. I mean, the beginning is the beginning is everyone's on their best behavior.
Right.
No one's farting, no one's burping, no one's doing the things. They're just, it's just like sex and passion and excitement and whatever. But I think that you do have to be careful because sometimes the really great sex in the beginning keeps you blinded to what's not so great later on. So you do have to be careful. I always say to clients, like, you just really have to make sure you should be dating your best friend. So the sooner that, like, the more real you are, the more honest. We don't want to be in those dating situations where you're like, well, has it been 3 days? I can't call them or text them because it hasn't been 3 days, or, I don't want to seem too eager. Just be yourself genuinely from the beginning and let them be genuinely. And then, yes, as time goes on, you'll start to see them, and don't repaint the red flags green. Once you see them, and I'm not saying look for them, but if you're seeing things, don't keep pretending or making excuses because, well, the sex is great and they don't have these things that these other exes had. So this is better than I've ever had. Is this really the person that you want, without making excuses for them?
Now, see this thing, you're married, right? So like this is the thing. Like I just started my spiritual journey, going to church and all that in January. And I go to deepen my connection and my relationship with God. And it's a lot of stuff that I don't agree with, like the whole, like not that I don't believe in marriage, but like the whole concept of it, the biblical concept of it is, no shacking up before getting married. Like I don't believe in all that. Me personally, I feel like you need that live-in experience before getting married. What do you think?
Well, I personally believe that living with someone before you get married is important. Statistically, it doesn't actually change the possibility of divorce.
Right.
So when they look at, like, they've actually done studies, and it actually sometimes is actually more chances of divorce, which is weird. But I don't.
When you live with them first?
Together, yeah, statistically, yeah.
Oh, I ain't see that statistic. That's crazy to me. Because this is the thing. Like, let's say you're dating and all that stuff, and you don't have that living experience. Anybody could put it on the facade. You could be the dirtiest person, but your significant other, the person you're dating, is coming over, so now you're going to clean up, right? You put on this facade, you put on this image, like, oh, I'm clean, I'm this, and that. Like we were saying earlier, but it's a little different because we were talking about narcissistic behaviors, but it's sort of the same concept. The person coming over, so now, okay, let me make sure everything is in order, right? Now, you don't know from day to day, week to week, if that's consistent or not. So that's why, for me, it's important to have that living experience. You know what I'm saying? Like my younger brother, he was in the military. He messed around with this one woman, right? And then he went off for months. And they decided to date. It was a long distance relationship. He got married. And I would never tell somebody not to get married. He got married. He wound up leaving the military because he felt like he wasn't with her enough and wasn't spending enough time with her. And then, like 6 months later, they was talking about a divorce. So to me, that's why it's important to have that living experience. It's certain things like, if this person's snoring, what if you don't like somebody that snores?
Exactly.
And you spend like with them, and it might be, you're like, oh, that's a one-off, and it's not every day. Or once you get married, all of a sudden now they don't brush their teeth. They don't take showers daily. Now you're like, what did I get myself into? And this is the thing. You said about the whole marriage thing before. It's like, grew up in the church. Now you get in a relationship, or not in a relationship, you get married to this person to find out all these negative characteristics and traits. And you're like, I can't put up with it. But now I'm married, and I feel like once you get married, that's it. Now you stop.
Yeah, no, right? I agree.
It's going to cause a disconnect.
Well, it's funny because with my now husband, we didn't really live together. I mean, we literally, even the first month of us being married, he still had his apartment because he just hadn't moved yet, because he was still working at his other job in Westchester, and I was on Long Island. And so we didn't live together, but we spent weekends together. And so we kind of had that where we would spend the weekends with each other. And then during the week, we would go off and do our regular jobs. And then we would come back and, basically we lived with each other on the weekend. So we did get to see it a bit. So I mean, like I said, I know the statistics and it's not really favorable. It doesn't agree with us necessarily, but I couldn't imagine not living with someone or really experiencing them. One of the craziest things to me is like somebody starts dating, but they're like, they meet them on, social media or whatever, Match, whatever their dating app is, but that they talk for like 6 weeks before they actually meet them. Like, no. You meet them immediately. You have any kind of vibe with them at all, meet them immediately. Public place, whatever. You're doing a long distance relationship for 6 years. No, that's not real.
It ain't gonna work.
No, that's not real. You're not in a relationship for 6 years. No. You talk on the phone with someone. Like you see them once a year. Even if it's once a month. That's not a relationship. So there's some people where they jump into things that it's like, that is not real to begin with. You can't know something like, I spend 6 hours. We talk all night long. That's still a whole different thing than, like you said, not doing the dishes, leaving their dirty socks on the floor. Like, can you deal with those things? Or is that cool with you? Or is that going to annoy you? Yeah, that's a pen pal. Thank you, Allison. That's not an actual relationship. We can all be like whatever. And, none of us smell bad or do anything weird when we're, in perfect behavior around someone. But when you live with someone, you can't pretend all the time.
Yeah, so that's what I say. I definitely need that living experience, because you start to see everything, it's just you live with them, everything's in order. You get accustomed, like, okay, it's been consistent, right? You still gotta keep your eyes open and be watching for certain things, and then you be like, okay, yeah, now I'm attracted to this person, from their outward appearance. They tidy, they check off all these boxes. Before that, you live in one place and this person in that place. It's just not enough for me. You're attracted to a part of them, not all of them, because you don't know all of them without that living experience. And that's what I like to tell people.
I agree. I totally agree.
Being that you're married, I have a good question I wanted to ask. Right? What specific behaviors make you feel completely safe, supported, and free to be your authentic self?
We don't have to agree on everything in order for us to still get along. And we will always come back to our shared goals, our shared vision. I think we are very good, and we're not perfect. We disagree. We've had some times over the past few years where it was stressful. But I think it's also realizing, like, not taking yourself too seriously and being open to hearing what the other person is saying and being open to look at ourselves. Sometimes it's like, I mean, even just the other day, my husband was he works at a wellness studio. And actually he's really cool, but he was kind of in a cranky mood. And I was like, what's going on? And instead of taking it personally, he's in a really cranky mood. And so like when he came home from work and I was like, so what was that earlier? And he's like, oh, you know what? He's like, it was this, and this. I was just in a place and I just wasn't feeling it. I was like, all right, cool. Well, you were being kind of a jerk, just so that And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. That I'm better now. I'm like, all right, cool. But being able to have those kinds of open conversations, it's like, it's not personal. We're entitled to have our own opinion. We're entitled to be different. We're entitled to have bad moods. Sometimes people have bad moods. You're just in a mood and you can't, and it's not your fault. I think if you take everything personally, you're going to walk around pissed off all the time. But most of the time, it's not actually about you. Most of the time, it's actually about what that person is thinking and feeling. And that's why they're cranky. So I think that you don't have to be defensive. You have to be able to be true to each other, I think is important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I just, I appreciate, I appreciate you doing this. I think this is a really great podcast, a really great opportunity to have these conversations, especially as a man. I think that it is such a great conversation to have. And I think men need to hear it. I think women need to hear it. I think they need to hear both perspectives of what we're going through and what we're experiencing. But I also want to say that I hope that no matter what you've been through, or no matter how long you've been through it, that you don't allow yourself to settle for mediocrity. Like, allow yourself to experience life for the beauty and wonderful amazingness, and know that it is possible to create something amazing and beautiful. I don't care what you've experienced before. You deserve to be with someone who sees the light and beauty inside of you and lights you up. You deserve that. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. You deserve someone that lights you up. And I'm not saying it's their responsibility, but you deserve someone that lights you up and doesn't dull your shine. And do not settle for anything other than that.
I love that. Because just like you, like, I always talk about men empowerment and women empowerment. And a lot of men that I know, like, oh man, what, like, women get empowered every day. They got the women movement. Why do you want to be a part of that? And it's like, I'm about positivity, right? Like, that's just who I am. Life is meant for us to love and care and just live carefree. And we all need to be empowered. This is the thing. When we talk about in relationships, you can't have one person feeling empowered and the other one feeling, the opposite. It's not going to work. So both man and woman need to be empowered. And then you earlier you say, like, men should do therapy, and I'm a big advocate for that as well. A lot of men are afraid of therapy. We shun it, but therapy works. It's effective. I've been doing it for years. I need to get a new therapist though. But it's therapeutic, and it's always worked for me when you have the right therapist. That is, and that's why.
And it's not weakness; it's strength.
It's not a weakness. We got to reframe that and get away from that mindset. And it's funny because a lot of men be like, oh, I ain't doing no therapy. Why I'm gonna tell somebody my problems? But then they turn around and they do like couples therapy. Therapy is therapy. And this is the thing. What's the difference between going and seeking professional help, right, versus talking to a friend of yours? A man talking to their best friend, that's therapy. That's a therapeutic environment. So if you can talk to a friend or a family member about your problems, you can do therapy. And that's how I like to break it down to people. Like, don't look at the word therapist, and say, oh no, I ain't gonna do that. Because what's happening is you're programmed, you're influenced by these outside influences, right? You're not even thinking for yourself. You got to stay true to yourself. If you need help, seek the help.
Yep.
Right? You got to seek to understand, and then trying to seek to understand your personal demons and problems. You can't do it alone. You need somebody else. So get the therapy, get the help that you need, get the guidance. And so that's what I want to say to that. So like I said, I appreciate you. It's been funny, and I love talking about things like this, like thought-provoking conversations. And I'm a little rusty. This is my second one in like months, because I've been doing other things. I got 2 jobs, but I'm glad that I'm back into the swing of things. And you're more than welcome to come back on any other episode. I can get on yours, and we can talk for days. I can see you just like me. You like to talk, which is a plus. But that's going to conclude today's episode. We hope everybody enjoyed it. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like, share, comment, spread the word. And Stephanie, have a blessed day.
Thank you. You too.